Ladies and gentlemen.
4, 3, 2,
Ladies and gentlemen.
1.
Can everybody hear me? Hear me okay? Good? It's a pleasure. Let me turn it up. Hi, I'm Bobby Ramos. Don't jump. No, I saw you jump. I saw you jump. I saw you jump. It's a pleasure to be here with the second act. And you heard in the opening, Bob Shepard, and he was the voice of the Yankees public announcer for 56 years. And Reggie Jackson coined him the voice of God. He's a great guy. So that was Bob Shepard you heard. And then you saw my parents, Paul and Doris Ramos. You're going to hear a lot about them tonight, a lot about them. And this kid here, he's a bad boy, Saraki. And I figured it was the perfect song. I'm coming out because I'm out here in Waterbury for the first time here. Hopefully not the last. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But I love genius. I love brilliance. And that's what this kid is. The way he dances, the way he moves, he's just brilliant. You know, so that's why with him, when I'm coming out, I just thought fit. I'm from Bridgeport, athlete most of my life. Used to beat my cousin Andre all the time. And the main thing, because we all have glitches, we all have things that hold us back for a while. I stuttered. I stuttered badly, especially around people I didn't know. I went to St. Patrick's and I stuttered so bad, the nuns used to skip me. You know, like everybody would read a paragraph and they would skip me. I didn't get teased because I was a great athlete and I was a big kid, so I didn't get teased, but it was in my head. But the nuns were very helpful by skipping me because, yeah, it would have made things worse. But also, my father, who's right here, my son and my mother. It's a big deal because I stuttered so bad I couldn't answer the phone. The phone would ring and I'd go in the opposite direction. And the phone would ring, and if I had to answer it, I'd be like, more, stop laughing, I'm sensitive, don't laugh at me. But anyway, it was that bad. And one summer day, my father was a carpenter working on his truck, and the phone rang, and I went outside to avoid answering the phone. My father said, boy, go inside and answer the phone. I go and answer the phone, come back outside, and he said, who was it? I said, Dad, I don't know, they hung up on me. And he said, if people don't want to call my house and hear my son stutter, then they don't have to call my damn house. Now go get me the toolkit. And that was a big deal for 11, 12-year-old kid. It didn't stop my stuttering, it didn't halt it and all that. But as a young boy, having your father, your male figure, say, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right one day. That was just a big deal to me as a young boy. I had a very eclectic cousin, Teeny, very smart, into everything, sports and cars and music. She knew everything about everything. And I was always home. If I wasn't playing ball, I was home building models. And every time she came over, she was living in Stanford and then Norwalk. Every time she came over, she always came to in the back room and talk to me. Come into my room and talk to me. Come on up, folks. Bruce Hurst is right there. Go sit with him. Anyway, and she said to me one time, I was now about 13 or 14, and she said, Bobby, I know you don't talk too much because of your stuttering. She said, but one day, thousands of people are going to listen to you. Your voice, thousands of people are going to hear your voice. And I repeated that story at her funeral. I don't know what she saw, but she saw something. And she was right. So that was that. Now, my mother, Diva Doris, right there, 4'11" dynamo. You remember her more. And nobody can cut you like your mother can. Because my mother stuttered. And that's where I got it from. But she was a very regal lady, very regal, always dressed to the nines. She went to Stop and Shop. She looked like she was going to a Broadway play. She was always dressed impeccable and everything. And she came home from church. She was a church lady. She came home from church one day. And I don't know if you know it. You don't know it, but I'm a smart ass, right there. And I'm doing some dishes, and she comes in. And I said, Ma, I looked over my shoulder. I said, Ma, what'd you go to church in sneakers for? And she didn't have no sneakers on. She had a little dress pumps on. And she looked at me. She was right on my right side. She goes, you know what? I liked you a lot better when you stuttered because you didn't talk so damn much. Only mothers get you like that. And it was one of the few times I didn't know what to say and I couldn't say anything. Fast forward, I'm working little jobs and stuff. And I take the police test, which I didn't want to. I didn't know anything about being a cop. I didn't know anything about the law. My buddy, Gerald, was taking the state police test, and he told me to take it with him. He didn't want to take it by himself. So I took it. I passed, he didn't. But he ended up getting in eventually. So, but I had knee surgery. I got hurt playing ball. And I was so naive. The day that I was supposed to show up for my physical, my knee wasn't ready. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave me a note that I could go through a physical in 2 weeks or more. I called the state police, and I said, can I move my physical date, 2 weeks down the road? I have a doctor's note. And she goes, you don't know how to deal with the state, do you? I said, no. She goes, no, we don't move anything. And I'm not even naive. I'm kind of stupid now. I said, well, I got a really high score. Can the score hold? She goes, you're funny. You're funny. She said, we don't hold anything. So, okay. So now, within the next year, I took Stratford, State Police, and Bridgeport. All gave their tests within a few weeks of each other. I heard from Stratford first, so I went to Stratford. While I was in the academy, and I remember it was the same week, I had already been in the academy almost 2 months. I got a letter from Bridgeport that I had passed their test, and I got a letter from the state police I had passed their test. But at that point, learning the difference between being a city cop and a state trooper, I didn't want to be a state trooper. They're not people persons. They can do an accident in their sleep, but they don't really deal with people too much because they're not around people. They do accidents. And though I wanted to be in Bridgeport, I had 2 months vested. I would have had to start over and go to the Bridgeport Academy. I'm like, no, I'm good in Stratford. So I stayed in Stratford. Go on, 27 years, and I become the most decorated cop in Stratford's history. Now, once again, Eva Doris. She says to me one day, and any mothers in here, you ladies will understand this 100%. My mother says to me, I go to these ceremonies and I see you get these medals and get these awards. How come you don't wear them? I see all these New York cops on TV and they have all these. How come you don't wear them? And I said, Ma, I don't want to wear those. And here's the kicker. She goes, first of all the stuff that you've gotten involved with, the first time you burp on Main Street, they're going to put you on the front page of the paper. She's right about that. But more importantly, here's where the mother kicks in. She goes, you talk everywhere, colleges, high schools, churches, you talk everywhere. You wear them medals. I said, Ma, I don't. She said, you wear those medals because it shows I raised you right. Nothing to do with my father, who was there every day. Every day my father was there. I had a great father. But mother, I raised you right.
That's right.
I raised you right. Your father just rolled over in his sleep one night. I raised you right. And that's just strictly a mother's way of thinking. So during the career, I become a SWAT negotiator, the head SWAT hostage negotiator. And that was a trip. Because I was already on the radio. But anyway, I was trained by the FBI. And then I was trained for 5 weeks, 2 different sessions with this guy, Dominic Musino, Italian brother. And he's from New York. He did the Lufthansa hike. He was the hostage negotiator for the Lufthansa hike. He was so good. He was so real. A&E did a 2-hour special about him. He was that cool. Little short cat. And he hated the FBI. He didn't like the way they did things. His trophy was how they handled Waco. You know, how they messed that up and didn't let the negotiators keep talking and woke them people up in the middle of the night, blaring music and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, caught fire and then shots fired. He blamed the FBI for that. So I went to the second session with him. We just really clicked. And it was, I don't know if it was in Pennsylvania or Las Vegas. Same kind of place, right? But anyway, I walked in a little bit late. And no, it's not. And there's a big auditorium full of like maybe 60 cops who were training to be hostage negotiators. And this was my second one. And I walk in from the back. And he goes, hey, Bobby. He said, say hi to everybody. Let it go. Say hi. And I said, hey, I'm glad to meet you guys. I'm Bobby Ramos. And he goes, you hear this guy? You hear this guy? Listen to the voice on him. He said the FBI, when they trained him, they told him that his voice was too commanding. He wouldn't be a good negotiator. His voice was too commanding. He said, if it was a rainy night, I might get in bed with him myself. He was that cat. He cussed all the time. I don't want to do it, but he cussed all the time. Because I had told him what had happened with the FBI. Coming back, we had done these exercises, and they would grade you, you know, not physically with a mark, just say how you did it in front of everybody. And when they got to me, one of the guys, there was 3 of them, one of the guys said, he said, your voice is too deep, it's too intimidating. I just caught myself stuttering there, which I'll explain that to you later. But he goes, you know, you may not work out because of your voice. And this class had like 30 cops in it. And there were 2 female cops sitting behind me. And they were laughing. They were snickering. And he pulled the grammar school teacher thing. What do you ladies, what's so funny? You want to share it with the group? And they were like, no. He said, no. What are you snickering so much about? Share it with the group. And one of them said, okay, we were just saying we could listen to his voice all night. So that Dominic remembered that, and that's why he used anything to disrupt the FBI. He just couldn't stand it, but he was fantastic. He was a dynamo. He's gone now, but he was a dynamic kind of guy. There were 2. This guy, he had everything under the sun. He had a drug problem, drinking problem, going through a divorce, losing his house, and the night before he went on a binge and he hit 5 parked cars, including 2 Bridgeport police cars in front of the police department. Sideswiped them and kept going. So he's barricaded in his house. And I get there, we got the SWAT guys. They're behind trees with their rifles and stuff like that. And when you're negotiator, there's a stuttering in. When you're the negotiator, you're their lifeline. You're their lifeline. And this guy, because of the alcohol and the cocaine, he's up, he's down, he's up, he's down, he's all over the place. And he was kind of getting on my nerves, to be honest with you. Matter of fact, my mother said one time when I was in school to be a negotiator, she goes, how you going to be a negotiator? Because you're going to have to go to a game. And you're going to tell somebody, listen, shit or get off the pot, I got to go to a game. Mom again. But anyway, this guy was all over the place. And finally, he wanted suicide by a cop. And then 2 minutes later, he would say, I'm going to blow my head off. He had a handgun. I'm going to blow my head off. So he was back and forth between coming out and shooting and having the cops kill him or putting a gun to his own head or his mouth. So finally, I said something to him. And he goes, you know, you sound like that damn cop on the radio. And I said, oh, you mean sports talking black and white, keep it real, keep it right, Sunday night, 7 to 9, be on time. He had a word you never heard from Bobby and the Bird. He goes, it's you! It's you! So now, I find out who his teams are. He liked the Giants, he liked the Yankees. He told me all his teams and what players he liked. So now, when he would get too down, I would bring up something good about the Yankees. He loved Derek Jeter, you know, and I would tell him something about that. Even though Jeter was a jerk. But anyway, he was up and down, but that would smooth him out. That would smooth him out to sports. And that's when I realized you got to use every tool on your tool belt, you know, and that's what the second act is about, you know, using all the tools on your tool belt. There was, he ended up, I got him to come out almost 2 hours. And he's coming out slowly. Can't pass that line. He's coming out slowly, and I'm on the phone with him. I said, all right, put the gun down. And he's going down. He's like halfway. And one of our SWAT guys messed up and leaned out, and he saw the rifle. And he pulls up. He goes, oh, shit. And he pulls up and runs back in the house. And he goes, Bobby, they were going to kill me. They were going to kill me. I said, I thought you wanted to die. And he goes, F you, and he started laughing. But it was real life drama, but it took me almost another 2 hours to get him to come back outside again. He didn't trust. You're their lifeline, so when I got him to come out and did everything right, put the gun down, the guys got him, he asked me to go with him. I went in the ambulance with him to go to the hospital. He came to the police department like 10 days later. I got called into the lobby, and he came to apologize to me. And I said, man, you don't owe me an apology, man. You know, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Don't worry about it. We talked for a while. Turns out, he was the mayor of Bridgeport's cousin. And the mayor called me the next day and said, Bobby, thank you very much. Great job, and this and that. Well, the poor guy, maybe 4 months later, did commit suicide in Bridgeport. But yeah, it was just times I was able to use what had grown for me on the radio. I had this lady, minor accident, she rear-ended somebody in Paradise Green. And I go up, license, registration, insurance. Nobody's hurt. And she's like, you're the cop on the radio. I said, yeah, thanks. Yeah, my husband and my boys listen to you all the time. I said, okay, thank you. I take her paperwork, I start the report, and I go back to the car, and I said, smart ass, I'm sorry. I said, would your boys like my autograph? She goes, oh, they would love it. I said, yeah, it's on the back of the ticket here. I decided. She laughed. She did laugh. She did laugh because nobody was hurt and this and that. So you have to use what you have. Me and my partner Roger would once in a while take the prisoners in the prisoner van to go to court in the morning in Bridgeport. And we'd be talking, all these prisoners would be in the back handcuffed. And some guy in the back, hey, you're Ramos, you're the cop on the radio. And I'm like, yeah. I said, I still got to take you to jail, but when you get out, keep listening. You'll hear me once in a while. I just did it again. The thing with the stuttering, we didn't have money for no doctors, no counselors. Besides the confidence that my father gave me, I taught myself to slow down my speech a little bit. And I tell this to people because everybody has people who stutter in their families and friends. You know, around the world, there's 80 million people who stutter. In this country, there's 3 million people who stutter. 3 million. So I learned to slow my speech down. And as my voice got deeper, I can tell almost what words are really going to hem me up. And I change them really quick in my head. Or I slow down, I take a little extra air in my lungs, and I just blow through it. So anybody who they know with a stuttering, there's ways. And I understand there's doctors and stuff, but a lot of it's in your head. A lot of it's in your head. And you have to learn to control your own throat muscles, your own mind. You know, like I said, I've done it like 3 or 4 times. Now, most people, when I was on the radio, and that would come up once in a while about the stuttering, and people would call in, "Oh, Bobby, you never stuttered. You don't stutter." And then sometimes some of my old classmates would call in, "No, he did. He did stutter." It's just in your mind. I just want you guys knowing that going forward, if you know anybody who has that affliction, or you probably didn't hear it too much. People who I was comfortable with, neighborhood people, my family. Now I was quiet because I didn't want to overdo it. I was quiet. Anyway, I just wanted to give you that. Back to the cop stuff. I retire. I won from the state the 2017 Martin Luther King's Award. So I had to go to the Capitol in Hartford with Blumenthal, and I got it, so it's cool. Man, about 2 months later, I'm home. Phone rings. And I look at it, it says State of Connecticut. And the lady goes, "Is this Bobby Ramos?" Now, once again, I'm from Bridgeport. So I said, "Oh, shit. They want their award back." "No, this is Steve." "This is Steve. How can I help you?" She goes, "Is this Bobby?" I said, "Yeah, it's me." And she goes, "Listen, every year the state gives out a Man of the Year award." She said, "Your name was submitted." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Don't okay me." She said, "You won in a landslide. The votes came in this morning." I said, "Okay." She said, "The state also gives out a Lifetime Achievement Award." She said, "You won that too in a landslide." She said, "I'm going to be honest with you." She said, "First of all, this is Hartford. We don't deal with your end of the state." She was honest. "We don't deal with your end of the state." She said, "Second of all, and we don't deal with cops. You're the first cop to ever won this." She said, "But more importantly, you're the first person to win both awards in the 26 years of these awards." So she goes, "March so-and-so, can you be at the Capitol to receive the awards from Senator Blumenthal?" Smart ass again. I said, "I'm kind of busy. Let me check my schedule." And she goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm a smart ass. No, I'll be there." Once again, that's my mother in me. And that's where it goes. I just have to say this as a sidebar because people ask me all the time. People will say, "Oh, it's so tough thank you for your service. You know, it's so tough being a police officer." It wasn't for me. I tell people, I'm not in the military. Save that for them. I worked in our toughest neighborhood my whole time. I didn't find it hard. You're always going to get knuckleheads. But I knew from my parents, how you treat people is what you're going to get in return. Listen, if I saw the cats on the corner and they had the brown bag and I recognized them, I'd go up, get rid of that. Don't do it in public. Next time I see it, your ass is mine. Case closed. If I saw them a second time and I recognized them, I'd embarrass them and dump it out. Third time, I'm going to arrest you. So there was a respect there. They understood that. And it was cool being the old school cop because I didn't have to chase too many people because I knew, you guys know, I knew everybody where you lived. I knew your parents, your grandparents. And so you didn't, I had kids once in a while, they'd run it. Oh, Ramos, all right. It was really different because they couldn't tell their parents or grandparents, oh, the cop was racist, or the cop was mean, he was a jerk, because they were here. What'd you make Officer Ramos come here for? Okay. I know you can be a little shit. What'd you make Officer Ramos come here for? And that's just the way it was. My great friend, my brother, and my mentor, I mention him every time. Ted Meekins had the same thing in Bridgeport. Give him a round of applause. He's also in the National Black Police Officers Hall of Fame. And I just went in, it's in Chicago, right? I just went in, 3 months ago. And I did steal some of the silverware. But it was a great honor, don't get me wrong. But the biggest honor for me was going into the same place that this man is in. Thank you, Ted. There's quite a bit of stories with him. As you're seeing there in the PowerPoint, you see a lot of big stars. Riverdale. Riverdale. I talked to everybody and I don't do 3 5-minute interviews. I do an hour or two.
Yep.
So,
or 3 hours.
Or 3 hours, yeah, I just had one of those, the guy from the NBA, Ray Scott. But Ali, Tyson, Oscar Robertson, Shaq, Kobe, Belafonte, how did I forget Jim Brown? Jim Brown, oh, I could keep you folks here for an hour talking about Jim Brown. How people thought on stage, you were there, Viv, we were going to get into a fight because he got ticked off. And, but the key moment was, see, Jim, I talked to a friend of his, we were somewhere, and we had just come out of the limo, and Jim was giving a speech in Norwalk, I believe, at the NAACP thing. And we're going to the hotel to get something for him inside. And I said to his buddy, who was a big-time coach in West Haven, I said, why does Jim like messing with me all the time? He goes, because he likes you. I said, he ain't got to like me that much, because Jim was rude. Jim was rude and crude. He was a different cat. And he goes, no, you don't understand. Jim is brilliant. And I said, yeah, I know. He goes, no, you don't know. He graduated #1 in his ROTC uniform. He said people are either intimidated by his intellect or they're intimidated because he's big bad Jim Brown. He said, you go back at him all the time. Nobody does that, and he likes it. He respects you for that. But on that stage, he did not like it. He got ticked because I called him on some BS, and I was able to prove it. But that seminal moment, he changed. He wasn't nasty. He wasn't surly anymore. And he said, remember, I'm here out of my respect for you. I got to watch what I say because everybody here knows you. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, he wasn't raised by his parents, and he resented that. Because when I did him on stage like this, and he's sitting in the chair, and I dedicated the show to my father, I heard him. He goes, like that. And he didn't have a father, so he resented. He wouldn't say it. We talked about like 6 years later, and he told me to F off. But yeah, he was a chameleon. Great guy with a lot of stuff. Felix, is Felix here tonight? He's another guy. Felix is from here. He's on the board here. And he did a great book called Dad, Ali, and Me. And I had him on. This was years ago. He called me. I didn't know him. He wanted to, I'm going to help this guy promote his book. He came to my house for dinner. We went and did the show. And I was good friends with Angelo Dundee, Ali's trainer. And I had him call in to push Felix's book. And so, yeah, he's a local guy that I'm real tight with. Great guy. Tyson. Tyson is one of the smartest people you'll ever run into. People think he's dumb, and he's dumb like a fox. He wants you to think like that. He's sensitive, and listen, I'm talking to him, and this is when he was doing his one-man stage show. And I said, Mike, are you going to be honest and straightforward? I'm thinking he's going to talk about him and Robin Givens and some of those stories. And he goes, oh, wow, Bobby, you went there. You went there. I don't know what he's talking about. He goes, yeah, I'm going to talk about my daughter. His daughter was 2 or 3 years old in their house. She got on a treadmill, turned it on, and the thing wrapped around her neck, and she suffocated. His daughter died in his house. Who the hell would bring that up? But in Tyson's mind, he is that straightforward. He is that hard. Nobody would bring that up or think you were going to bring up. Nobody wants to hear about your poor baby like that. There's nowhere to go with something like that. But in Tyson's mind, that's where he went. I got to tell you this last thing about him, because he's such a different guy. I got this all on tape. And I said to him, there were 3 boxers who had all gotten killed within like 3-4 months. One committed suicide, Alexis Arguello, and 2 other guys. Macho Camacho, sitting in a car in Puerto Rico. The guy was a drug dealer. He got shot in the head. And another guy. And I said, Mike, have you ever thought that by the grace of God, that could have been you? And he goes, every day, Bobby, every day, my friend. He goes, listen, I was so full of myself. I was so arrogant. I wasn't paying my drug dealer. I was daring somebody to shoot me. I'm Mike Tyson. I'm Mike Tyson.
Wow.
Who says that? Mike Tyson does. So I tell you some of these things because I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't say hello. I'm not supposed to be on TV and interviewing, on radio and interviewing people, let alone some of the biggest names out there. Kobe was cool. Kobe had a promo card, and you would just add, I'd hand it to him, and you would just add your name on the line. Hi, this is Andre Centeo, and you're listening to Bobby on Bottom Line, WICC. So he read it for me, read the promo card. I said, Kobe, do me a favor, read in Italian. He goes, I don't speak Italian. I looked around. I said, Negro, stop lying. Yes, you do. And he smiled at me and he read it because he spoke fluent Italian, because his father played in Italy for years. Different cat, though. Different cat. I'm going to save Norman Lear. Oh, one other thing, just stuttering. One other thing. Norman Lear and I were cool. You're going to hear about him later. Oscar Robertson, one of the greatest ball players of all time. And they have media day for the NBA. And Kenyon Martin was just drafted from Cincinnati. So Oscar Robertson went to Cincinnati, and Oscar's sitting at a table by himself. I walk in, and I'm like, that's Oscar Robertson. There's about 75 to 100 media people there. And nobody's talking to Oscar Robertson. He's known to be surly and all this stuff. So I went up to him. I said, Mr. Robinson, you mind if I get a few minutes with you? And he goes, yeah, sit down. I sat down. And I'm interviewing him. About maybe 6 minutes later, you can feel somebody behind you. An NBA suit, who I didn't know, comes up, interrupts the interview, doesn't say excuse me, says, oh, Mr. Robertson, the media is waiting for you. CBS and NBC and ESPN is waiting to talk to you. And I look to my right, and these cats are lined up. I knew what was going on. They were afraid of him, but they see me talking to him. Now they're going to line up. Oscar Robertson says, he looks at him, he goes, "Oh, they want to talk to me?" He said, "After I finish with this young fella here, maybe I'll decide to say a word or two to them." I was like, he's the real deal. Oscar Robertson is the real deal. And I did like a 2-hour interview with him later about this video he put out. He sent a letter on his letterhead. Yeah, so having these conversations, once again, growing up in Bridgeport and not being able to really talk too much to strangers or in settings, I'm not supposed to be talking to these people. I'm not supposed to be talking to these people. So I say that a lot, once again, wherever I go, whether I talk at colleges or people have kids, them, grandkids who have stuttering problems. And I constantly say it because it can be worked on. And there is hope. There is always hope. So I just have to put that out there. Even though I interviewed all these people, and I mean a lot, there's a lot more than that you can say. Isaiah Thomas and the biggest jerks, because people always ask me, the biggest jerks I ever dealt with, people thought it was going to be somebody like Allen Iverson. He was the nicest pie. The biggest jerk I ever saw was Jordan. I loved him as a player. But listen, when they opened Mohegan Sun, and he had a restaurant in there. So me and my partner on the show, Bernard King, we go and we're second in line. The locker room, the door's closed. They open the door, we go in. And there's the whole team in there. They were playing a practice game. It was preseason, but it was to open up his restaurant. He was there. So he's still in a suit and tie and stuff, and he's sitting in a chair by himself with headphones on, his jacket behind his chair. All his teammates are in their uniforms. So a guy from the news station, Channel 3, young guy, goes up and he gets on his knee and he's lining up a shot. Jordan lifts up his earplug and said, "Turn that effing camera off." I'm right there. I'm like 7 feet away. And the poor young kid, he was rattled. He goes, "No, Mr. Jordan, I don't need an interview. I'm just taking a shot for the evening news." Jordan had let his earphones go again. He pulls them off again. He goes, "What effing part of no do you not get?" That kid packed up and got out of there. And at that time, I had a partner on the show. And he goes, "You ready?" I said, "I want to talk to him. I'm done with him. You treat people like, no, I have nothing to say to you." That's why all the stuff that came out in The Last Dance, we all know he was a great player and all that. But I've never heard anybody, teammates, say, "I was afraid of him." Because he had that kind of power to go to management and have you cut. So, watch it again. Watch what he did, Burrell, who's from Connecticut, went to UConn. Watch what he did to that kid on camera so his parents could see it. That shows the side. Now I got to say, because it still ticks me off. They're on a plane, and they see the camera, right? And Jordan's going, "You're hanging out too much with all these different women." Knew the guy had a girlfriend. "You're hanging out with all these different women. You're too busy drinking all the time," and blah, blah, blah. And Burrell goes, "Mike, my parents are going to see this. What are you doing? Mike, my parents are going to see this." "Well, they need to know you're an alcoholic and you're hanging out in the streets and this and that." This guy, he had only been on the team like 3 years. He was a young guy. And here's the face of the NBA. That's really who Jordan is. That's really who Jordan is. I understand he's a great player, but I like to tell my people in Connecticut, the people that I've run into that you hear about, Bobby Valentine, man, arrogant as the day is long, know-it-all, nasty. He was another one. Most of these people are decent people. But there's a couple that'll stand out to you. They're just not. and Valentine wasn't at all. So I just wanted to get this. So I'm interviewing all these people. Once again, Diva Doris. I'm doing the dishes. She comes home, and she lived with us the last 12 years of her life. So you can see I did a lot of dishes. But anyway, I'm standing there doing dishes. And like I said, my mother was 4'11", about your size, Sherry. And she comes up and paya. You know when somebody hits you in the meat of your neck, that fat, and you hear paya, that sound slap? That's what she reached up from God and smacked the taste out of the back of my head. And I said, Mom, ow, what are you doing? What are you doing? She goes, she's come back from church. Don't be talking about me on the radio. Now, I was also doing a crime prevention show on Tuesdays. And it was like a 15, 20-minute segment. And I would give crime tips for women not to leave your pocketbook open when you're in the supermarket and then go across the lane to get some because people can reach in and grab your pocketbook or grab your wallet. And it was doing stuff like that, giving people tips. Yeah, it happened to you. There you go. See? You should have been listening to my show, woman. Anyway. Anyway. So I said, Ma, I had said on the show that my mother, which was true, I said my mother is 78 at the time, and she got her wallet stolen out of her pocketbook in Stop and Shop, doing just that. So you really don't want to do that. If somebody grabs your pocketbook, let it go, get your arm broke, all those kind of tips. So she goes, I don't care nothing about your little show trying to save people. Now I'm thinking she's talking about, her getting her pocketbook stolen, her wallet stolen. She goes, don't you ever say my age over the radio. All my church friends know my real age. She didn't cook for me for like 10 days. I got so skinny. Yeah, so there's just power in that radio stuff. And she could really hit for somebody who's 4'11". Now, her and mine, again, I had retired, and I said, let me at least keep my promise to my mother. Let me go back and get my little associate's degree, get my little 60 credits. My mother's gone, my father's gone. I said, but let me just keep my word. So I go to Southern, find out, I figure I got maybe 35, 40 credits, because like every 2 or 3 years, I would take a class or two. I had like 98, 102 credits, and didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. I never paid attention to it.
It was over 130.
It was 100, okay. It was a lot. And so 2 weeks later, a dean calls me, and he goes, let me ask you, of course, got my number off of the school record. He goes, are you the police officer that was on the radio? And I said, yeah. 2 decades. I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, I heard you were here and you want to be a professor. You're going to be a great professor. He said, because I used to listen to your show. I listened to your show for years. He said, if I know you, you're going to have John Carlos and Cornel West and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar zooming in on your class. I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay. So yeah, it was a different experience because, listen, last time I was in school, this was during COVID. So everything was online. I didn't know how to sign on. I didn't know nothing about Blackboard. Last time I was in school, I had a number 2 pencil in the damn lunchbox. So I did not know how to navigate through all this stuff. It took so long. But I ended up doing good. And the kicker was, I got my associates. It was at the Bridgeport Arena on Tuesday. And Friday, I got my bachelor's from Southern in the same arena. So then I got my master's. Make a long story short, talk about second act. you know, and I'm plus 22 now. I'm past 22 years old. And stop, Ted. That hurts. Stop, Ted. I used to like you, Ted. Stop it. Being a professor, I want to be able to tell these kids that I'm just like you. I want to do Housatonic because I want to give back to my kids in Bridgeport. I want to do Southern because I went there. I want to do University. I want to do everything. And I have a great class hooked up. But it's been a journey because there's been a hiring freeze for almost 2 years now. So I'm hoping that opens up. But that being said, the kids asked me to be the keynote speaker at their graduation after I graduated. I've gone into other classes. Teachers have had me come and do, and I thought they meant come in and speak for 10 minutes. No, they had me do their whole class. One guy who was the chair for 8 years, he's now the president of their union. And you have to get a letter to get into the master's program, which is a joke because they just want your money, and you know that. But you have to get a letter. And he wrote this grand letter. Bobby's not going to, he's had me for 2 master's classes, got A pluses. He's not going to be your stereotypical professor if there is one. He has something that none of us have here. I've watched students ask him questions. I've watched him leave the room, and 2 or 3 students are always following and talking to him in the hallway. So that's what it's about for me. That's talk about the second act. I'm like on, like you said, I'm like on act 5 or 6 or something like that. So that's what I'm doing with that. Also, I'm getting ready to write a book. And I've always had so many people say, you need to write a book about your cop career and this and that. And I wanted to write a book about all these people that I've dealt with and all the stories. And I've sat at people's knees and people have told me some stuff like Jim Brown said on stage. He said, I'm going to get blasted all over the country after this interview because you got me saying stuff I don't normally say. And I've got that from Bill White, ex-Yankee announcer, and Oscar Robertson and Jim Nance. I've got those kind of words from them. Once again, I stuttered. I'm not supposed to be dealing with these people, let alone doing a pretty good job at it. I didn't want to write the book about police stuff because honestly, I'm bored with it. And I want to write about these people. And Pastor Logan, great pastor, Messiah Baptist Church in Bridgeport, the home church for Ted and Joanne Meekins.
Yes.
And I go there once in a while to empty the garbage and stuff. I don't go as much as I should. He keeps telling me he's going to get me there. Probably will. I know he will. But he's a Giant fan. I haven't been able to get over that. But anyway, and a Knick fan. But he had this great idea that he just recently gave me. He was like, Bobby, I see all these people that you've dealt with. He said, you need to write a book. He said, you'll be on Oprah and all. I said, all the stuff I'm hearing about Oprah, I don't know if I want to go on her show right now. But anyway, I said, but I don't really want to write 2 books. I just don't have the time. There's other things I want to do. He had a brilliant idea. He said, take things from your police world, all the things you did, like some of the stories I told you, and apply it to the sports world. He said, like, what you stood up for. I went through death threats and I got shot at and all that stuff. The N-word scratched into my locker in the police department. He said, that's what Colin Kaepernick's going through. That's what John Carlos went through. Write a book from your personal life and relay it to some of these world-renowned athletes. And I said, yeah, Pastor's good. Pastor's good. So that's a great idea. So that's what I'm working on. Oh, the other thing, I got to tell you this one real quick. Like I said, I speak everywhere, high schools, colleges, and there's at Housatonic, they do this thing where they have seniors in high school. There's like 250 of them, 300 of them, and they come and spend the day, and they have like 8 speakers who get up and do their thing. boring to me, but I'll be nice. When I did it, they gave me a standing ovation. They had me sign autographs. But I had this presentation here. That's what this was made for. Ooh, I went over the line. I had this presentation. Oh, he's a jerk. I had this presentation, and no, because I didn't know he was a jerk at that time. I didn't know he didn't like black people at that time. I probably wouldn't. Yeah, really. Yeah, really. You didn't know about that when his daughter was dating a black guy, and she recorded a phone call and all the nasty things he said to her because of work. Yeah. Anyway, but I didn't know it at that time. He's a sweetheart of a guy. We all know he went through his problem, but he's a sweetheart of a guy. But anyway, I'm in this class showing this here. And these kids, I say, I'm from Bridgeport. I went to Housatonic, just like you. And there were 3 young ladies sitting in the last row. One of them raised her hand, said, "Excuse me, sir." She said, "No disrespect, but who the hell are you?" Yeah, this was the 8th grade. Who the hell are you? That's why I want to teach. And I said, "I'm just like you. I stuttered. I'm from Bridgeport. Didn't have, it is what it is. Whatever field you want to go in, whatever you want to do, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve." But that was the glitch. Who the hell are you? So, that's just where that's at. Now, in closing, you heard me mention Norman Lear, the greatest TV producer ever. He's a lot like Cornel West. Cornel West, this cat graduated from 2 Ivy League schools in a year with like 2 degrees from Ivy League. Who does that? But Cornel West. But when you talk to him, he's like talking to a neighbor next door. He is so down to earth. And when I met him, we were in this little restaurant thing, and he was like, "Bobby, tell me about you." I said, "I need to know about you. This is Dr. Cornel West." So now when I hook up with Norman Lear, I'm doing the interview. It's the first time talking to him, and I called him Mr. Lear. Don't call me Mr. Lear, call me Norman. Okay. I wasn't raised that way, but okay. And he had, he's from New Haven. From New Haven, and he had quite a career. He was also in World War II, fighter pilot. So we talked about the Tuskegee Airmen saving his ass. He brought that up. I didn't know they had saved his ass a couple of times. But anyway, about 12 minutes into the interview, once again, I'm a stutterer. During the interview, he goes, Bobby, you sound so interesting. Tell me about you." And I said, "Norman, I'm here to interview you, man. You mean hear me?" I said, "Everybody in my area knows me. I want to talk to you." No. Tell me about you. You got a little forward. Tell me about you. All right. So I talked for like 3-4 minutes. I said, "Okay, Norman, let's get back to the interview." And he goes, "Are you recording this?" And I said, Yeah. He goes, "What you were just talking about, you recorded that?" I said, "Yeah, it's in the machine." I said, "But I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to edit that out." He goes, "Keep that shit in there. Keep that shit in there." Norman Lear. And at that time, he was in his early 90s, but Norman Lear was talking like he was in his 50s. I don't know if you've seen him recently. He was still sharp and effervescent, and he was just a great guy. So going through the interview, and we're all over the place, and later when the interview was over, and I have it on tape, he said, "Bobby, listen, next time I go to New York," he said, "I want you to come with me. I want you to sit on the stage because you can talk about anything. I'm going to have you come." He never made it to New York. It didn't happen. I wanted to bring him here to interview him, but his people got him in a circle and they wouldn't let him travel. So that was that. But at the end of this great hour interview, and we got into everything, George Jefferson, all of the family, all of the deep stuff, Red Fox. I didn't know this. He said it. All the people on the Red Fox show, besides Lamont, who played his son, none of them were actors. None of them. They were all comedians from the Chitlin circuit. Even LaWanda Page, you pigeon-eyed fool and all that stuff, and Grady. They were stand-up comedians on the Chitlin circuit. Red Fox was so kind-hearted, he said, "If I'm getting paid, they're getting paid." None of them were actors.
Wow.
None of them were actors. So that tells you a lot about his spirit. I almost crossed the line again. And who he was. So all of that came from Norman Lear. Calhoun, great guy. Jerry West, a lot of problems, but a real nice guy. He's a manic depressive and things. He's just gone through a lot in his life. He's achieved a lot with going through all the things he's gone through. He is the logo of the NBA. Wow, I could talk about all these people with stories, but anyway, I gotta save it for the book, right? Anyway, I want you to hear what Norman Lear said to me. Once again, he's in his 90s. This is Norman Lear at the end of the interview. And I don't get caught off guard. I don't. Except for my mother.
Dude, I really enjoyed this enormously. I appreciate you a lot.
I appreciate that, sir.
I love you, Bobby. I don't give a fuck who knows it.
Yeah. Family, thank you for listening to your show and mine, Bobby Ramos' Bottom Line. Thank you for your time, this time until next time. Your continuous support drives me because I don't want to be a man of power, but I do want to be a man of purpose. Much love. I don't know if you can hear him. You hear him laughing after he said it. He thought it was the funniest thing. So yeah, I got a tape I put it on Facebook when he passed away. I just put that ending on it. And people were shocked because he was like everybody's grandfather, funny guy, wise guy, but didn't know that side of him. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want to thank everybody for having me today. You can go to my website, BobbyRamosBottomLine.com. You see all of the people and all the community things which I'm really proud of because of my parents. Everything that I am is because of my parents. That's why they go wherever I go. My father, now I got to tell you something about that. Big time carpenter. And I remember that's where I got my spirit of doing for people, no matter what, giving. And I still give families food and clothes and whatever I can get. People give me stuff. And I remember my father, you guys remember the A&P? Okay. He had a buddy over at A&P, which was not far from us, off the Post Road. And I went with him a couple of times. After midnight, my father, in our garage, we couldn't put the car in the garage because he had built shelves on 3 walls. And they were all like 3 feet apart. And they were wall-to-wall canned food and soap powders and stuff like that. What my father would do to go over to his buddy, him and his buddy would sit there 1 o'clock in the morning with hammers and dent the cans. And then he'd ring my father out for $1 a can. And it didn't go to us. If we did it 40, 50 times, it was once. He would say, let's go. We got to go to Norwalk. We got to go to Bridgeport. We got to go here and there. And he was giving this food to families who didn't have it. It wasn't going to us. So it was a little Robin Hoodish, stealing from the rich. A&P didn't break. But that's what my father was doing on top of his job. And that taught me to constantly always give back. And you get it back twofold, to do all you can for people, because people are in need. But that's what he was doing, sitting there with his hammer, denting cans, and getting them for a penny. And my mother used to complain because we couldn't put the car in the driveway, in the garage. But that's because, and he had stuff all over the floor too, stuff all over the floor. And that's what he was doing, and that's that. So, what I want to tell you about the second act also is to stop shrinking, trying to fit into places that you've outgrown. Grow into new spaces. Because we all have, everybody says, well, everybody has a talent. That's true. But most of us have more than one talent. So when you're finished with your regular job and all this stuff that you did for decades, there's still things you're going to, and it's not always predicated on money. You're doing it from your heart. You're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because you feel it. And the time goes by, it's not like working because you're doing something that you love. So please don't pigeonhole yourself. That's what so many people do. As I said to Sherry in the thing, live life. Don't let life live you. Some people think this is cocky. I don't care. It's the truth. My parents told me that I wasn't born to fit in, that I was born to stand out. And I always have carried myself like that. I've never, not because of me that I'm so special, but my parents were special. And they told me you weren't, especially my father, you're not here to fit in. You're here to stand out. So everything that I've touched, my mother said this late, said everything you've touched has turned to gold. She said, you're on the radio saying how you tease about women being jealous. She said, you work with all these male cops. You think that they're happy because you're the most decorated cop in your history? I didn't know what to say. She was right. She goes, then you do all this community stuff. You're on the TV. You're in the paper all the time. You think they're happy about that? I didn't say anything again. She said, then you become a radio personality. And you're all over and you're doing this and you're doing that. Do you think they're happy about that? She said, don't stop what you're doing because God is driving you where you're going. But don't think that everybody's going to be happy about it, but don't care about that. You do where you see a need. So with people's third and second and fourth acts, I will say, please try to lean towards something that's going to benefit or help somebody else. As Jay-Z said at the Grammys the other day, you keep showing up. You just keep showing up. And that's what I firmly believe in from somebody who is a stutterer. And as my mother says, I now can't shut you up. Never stop, never quit. Believe in yourself. You all believe in yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy to come to Waterbury. I'm Bobby Ramos. Thank you for tonight. We did it, my son, we did it. We conquered Waterbury. Now on to our next project. I love you, Bobby.